At first, I was planning to do this video as a tier list, ranking about 40 or so New York City neighborhoods, but it was getting long, and in the end, I really only wanted to gush about my top 10 favorite. So here's me doing a top 10 video instead. In my opinion, these 10 neighborhoods all encapsulate the best things about being in New York City. I'm talking the pedestrian friendliness and cycling infrastructure. I'm talking the urban fabric, the shopping, and the dining. I'm talking the parks, the museums, the history, the setting, and now I'm talking too much, so let's just get into the top 10. Roosevelt Island rounds out the top 10 for me, and you'd probably assume so, seeing as my most viewed video on YouTube right now, sitting at around 800,000 views, covers just about everything I'd want to say about the place and more, so be sure to check that out when we're done here. Mainly why I love Roosevelt Island is because of its setting and environment. It's the most calm and serene place you can be in the city during the daytime, and the most low-key and quiet place you could be in at night. Its seemingly endless array of green spaces, coupled with its perimeter walking and biking paths, make for a perfect place to be for people looking to be surrounded by nature and water. Central Park definitely has this too, but you can't live there. Just don't come to Roosevelt Island if you're looking for top-tier dining options, because it's really sorely lacking in that department, but I do think there's plenty of room for growth on the island, while also still keeping its low-key charm. And I can't forget about the incredible views you can catch of both Long Island and Manhattan while walking the aforementioned perimeter pathways. Overall, a solid number 10, if I do say so myself. Number 9 is Cobble Hill, and I feel like Cobble Hill has been getting a lot of attention online recently, and for good reason. This little tucked away Brooklyn neighborhood is full of charm, with a bunch of great local eateries and boutiques to bat. It's mostly residential, with just two main commercial corridors on Court and Smith Streets. Court Street is my preferred thoroughfare. The narrow, tree-lined streets make it a great place for a long stroll, maybe even all the way down Court Street into Carroll Gardens, another fantastic New York City neighborhood. The neighborhood's endless amount of beautifully preserved brownstones add a particularly Brooklyn warmth that's really hard to describe to people who haven't been there. Overall, Cobble Hill is a really breezy, low-key area of Brooklyn that's probably going to see a lot of growth in the coming years if I had to guess. Retail vacancies seem to be getting rented out more and more, which is obviously a good sign, and I can see a lot of people wanting to turn this area into the next Williamsburg, whatever you may think of that. At number 8 is the Upper East Side. This neighborhood is most known for its wealthy residents, cafes, modern high-end boutiques and shopping, mostly along Madison Avenue, and its upscale dining. But those reasons aren't why the Upper East Side makes this best of list. What truly sets the Upper East Side apart is its location, above all else. The Upper East Side sits adjacent to Central Park and provides really easy access to it, and that can't be understated. It also just so happens to harbor two of the nation's best museums within its borders, the Met and the Guggenheim. This is what makes the Upper East Side so special, for me. The culture and history located within those two buildings alone is enough to put any place on a list like this. Also, the neighborhood is home to some of the city's favorite restaurants, including the laid-back J.G. Mellon, as well as Cozart's Bagels and Bialys. I especially appreciate the grand and stately buildings on Fifth Avenue along the border of Central Park and the Upper East Side. The area is very clearly old money New York City. Overall, this place comes with some great cafes, shopping, access to Central Park, and world-class museums. What's not to like? I have Seaport at number 7, and I won't take any slander of that pick down in the comments section below. This neighborhood is severely underrated and definitely deserves more love than it gets from locals, and that's probably because it's mostly new and up and coming and redeveloping. Look, I have a thing for repurposed historic districts, as you're probably well aware of if you're a subscriber to this channel, and Seaport is just one of a few places in the city that does it for me. The neighborhood was originally founded as a port for the Dutch West India Company in the 17th century, progressing into a 24/7 commercial hub throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, and the neighborhood retains and displays so much of that rugged charm. The pier section of the neighborhood is such a nice, low-key part of the city to be in, whether walking around or sitting and enjoying the views of the river and the bay, and that's just during the daytime. Seaport also boasts some great nightlife too, with an array of bars and clubs situated so close to Wall Street you can practically smell the Dior cologne before you enter any door. Kidding aside, I do love the look and feel of this area so much, especially that of the Tin Building, a fish market turned food hall. But the big winner in Seaport for me is how they've made everything west of Beekman Street car-free. This section of Seaport is complete with great dining options, bars, a movie theater, bookstores, and curated boutiques. Not to forget everything east of Beekman that's not car-free, but nearly just as all-encompassing in its offerings. They're really building up this place more and more every year too. There appears to be a massive residential undertaking going on here as well, scheduled for completion sometime in 2026. Always nice to see. Seaport feels like 1800s New York City brought into the modern era, and I just really love that vibe. Look, am I gonna put Soho at number 6 because it's still one of the best places in New York City for everything from food to shopping to just general exploring? Yes. Does the place have plenty of charm and boast an incredible display of architecture from the most prosperous time in this country's history? Also yes. Am I gonna say it's turning into a Times Square for fast fashion and tourists who only go there to brag about being able to say they went to Soho? Yeah, I'm gonna say that. But, I mean, it's Soho. It's like idealized New York City. It's got just about everything you can want in a New York City neighborhood. Great density, great shopping, decent walkability when it's not overrun in the spring and summer months, and great dining. It's only just missing some green space. Now, some of my favorite bites in Soho are at Shuka, a delicious Mediterranean spot, and of course, the Dutch for some very solid comfort food. Whatever kind of fashion or shopping you're into, they've got you covered in Soho. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's the city's and maybe the country's premier shopping district. I'd like to see some better traffic control on Broadway though, and more space for pedestrians there and on the smaller streets such as Prince or Spring Street. They have to make Soho less car dependent, like Times Square, because it's just a clogged up mess that's hindering the pedestrian experience at this point. But all in all, Prince Street, Spring Street, Broome Street, and Broadway are all just such a vibe. Easily some of the best looking buildings in the city too. At number 5 is the grungy, young, and dynamic Lower East Side, mostly known for its nightlife, art scene, vintage pop-ups, and historic tenement buildings. Look, the Lower East Side is a little rough around the edges, but that's kind of what makes it just so damn cool. If the Upper East Side is New York City's wealthy, old money grandmother, the Lower East Side is the city's rowdy punk teen. It's hip yet unpretentious, and it's also got some of the most iconic food in the city, being the home of Cat's Deli and Scar's Pizza. It also boasts some of the city's best music venues, bars, and nightlife scene overall. It may just be the city's most lively neighborhood at night. They've really got a place for everything when it comes to that. And in the daytime, it's got some of my favorite breakfast and brunch spots in the city. A few favorites include Dudley's, Russ and Daughters Cafe, and Sunny Boy. And I can't emphasize enough how good the shopping is here if you like vintage stuff. I feel like there's a pop-up market happening every day of the week here, and also a ton of brick and mortars to explore too. A great place to be for the younger crowd in the city. And I can't forget to mention that the Lower East Side has seen a ton of history throughout its years as well. The Tenement Museum is a great place to check out if you like history and want to learn more about how New York City handled the influx of Jewish, Irish, and Italian immigrants who would go on to build so much of the city's infrastructure throughout the 20th century. And the winner of the East Side of Manhattan Championship is the East Village, which slots in comfortably at number 4. So if the Upper East Side is New York City's old money grandmother, and the Lower East Side is New York City's rowdy punk teen, the East Village is the city's responsible dad who used to be wild in his younger years, but has become more refined in his later years. Alright, the family analogies are getting a bit too obscure at this point, so I'll put a stop to it there, and just tell you all about how great the East Village is. Honestly, I feel like this is one of the more popular answers locals give when you ask them what their favorite neighborhood in the city is. In a nutshell, the East Village is a low-key, quiet, and oh-so-quaint place. It also has what are supposedly the best bagels in town, Apollo Bagels. Now, I cannot attest to that, as I didn't get to try them on my visit this year, but from what I've seen online, their bagels sort of remind me of Layla Bagels here in Los Angeles, which are some of my favorite bagels on the planet. Where the East Village really shines is in its small businesses. Whether it's Nico Neko Zakaya on East 10th Street or Gnocchi on 9th, this place has some of the best local shopping in the city. It's the urban environment of these little blink-or-you'll-miss-it gems stuffed underneath and in between the most beautiful brownstones you've ever seen that creates a particularly enjoyable atmosphere. I loved walking from First Street, zigzagging all the way up through 14th Street, exploring the urban fabric, eating great food, visiting great local small businesses, all while being surrounded by some of the city's most unexpectedly picturesque urban backdrop. The East Village also has some great access to the East River Greenway for walking and biking too, if you're into that sort of thing. And in the city, who isn't? Rounding out the top 3 is Williamsburg. Just having Williamsburg on a list like this could be pretty controversial in the comments section, but to me, Williamsburg is as awesome now as it's ever been, if not more so. People seem to think this place is overrated and overrun with tourists nowadays, but when I visited as a tourist in May, all I saw was more and more growth and development. A safer feeling neighborhood, complete with better food, bars, and infrastructure than ever before. This is the place to be in New York City. The walking, the shopping, the parks, it's all just very enjoyable. It's hip, it's bustling, and it continues to defy the word trendy. It's definitely become cool to hate on Williamsburg, so I'll go ahead and be a rebel and say that I love this place. Also, it's got the best slice pound for pound in the city too, at La Industrie Pizza. And if the line isn't crazy and you're in the area, be sure to grab a slice or 3 before you head on your way out of the city. I also love Hole in the Wall on Bedford Ave for its great burgers as well, but really you can't go wrong at most spots in Williamsburg. The neighborhood might be New York City's most walkable neighborhood with its easy grid, tight blocks, and really great new density. It's just an outstanding overall neighborhood, easily a top 3 neighborhood in New York City. Coming in at second place is the Chelsea Meatpacking District. This neighborhood has everything, and at first I ranked it number 1, but I changed it at the last minute because I think the next neighborhood just can't be beaten. That's not to take anything away from Chelsea Meatpacking though, because it's still the second best neighborhood in the city by my account. Chelsea Market is one of New York City's best, not so hidden gems, with an abundance of excellent fast casual dining choices. Among them being the Donuttery, Los Tacos No. 1, Saxelby Cheesemongers, and Creamline Burgers. If you live walking distance to Chelsea Market, consider yourself very, very lucky. And oh yeah, this part of the city also is home to a little known rail trail called the High Line. You might have heard of it. Obviously one of the best, most unique places to experience the city from. And that's just the beginning of the Chelsea/Meatpacking's repurposed rail infrastructure on display. A big reason why I ranked this neighborhood so high is because of its aesthetics. The place is gorgeous, with a ton of old brick meatpacking buildings living their new urbanist lives. The adaptive reuse in the meatpacking district might just be the best case study in the country, housing everything from shops and restaurants to, well, housing. Just look at this place. The cobblestone streets, the open plaza with seating, easily one of the best looking neighborhoods in the city, even if I've said that a lot in this video. To me, scenes like these are peak New York City urbanism. Also, the neighborhood has great access to river-adjacent recreation, with the Little Island, Gainsford Beach, a personal favorite, and the Empire State Trail all within its boundaries. The Empire State Trail, or the Hudson River Greenway, whatever you want to call it, it's the best place to get outside in New York City, in my opinion. And I know that's a hot take with a city that's home to Central Park and Roosevelt Island, but I just really love the vibes here along the water. There's so much life. The neighborhood is also home to one of my favorite museums I've ever been to, the Whitney Museum of American Art. When I visited, they had an Edward Hopper exhibit going on, and it just blew me away. This place rocks, this neighborhood rocks, and if I were to live anywhere in New York City, it would be here, or the number 1 neighborhood in New York City, Greenwich Village/West Village. What hasn't been said about the village yet? It's world famous thanks to the countless number of shows and movies set and filmed there, but at the same time, it offers a low-key, pedestrian-friendly experience. Bleecker Street is maybe my favorite street to walk along in New York City. It's got something for everyone. Food, shopping, parks. The village really has it all. And it does it well. Washington Square is the quintessential New York City neighborhood park, but you also have so many smaller, quaint little parks dotted throughout the village too, such as Abingdon Square, St. Vincent's Triangle, and of course, Christopher Park. I also love the coffee shop scene in the village. Some of my favorites include Oslo Coffee Roasters, St. George Coffee, and the oh-so-cozy underground ad hoc cafe. I also think the neighborhood's biking infrastructure stands out as well, with some great protected bike lanes on 7th Avenue, as well as some solid bike signage on the supplemental thoroughfares. Also, the way that the streets are so tight and for the most part one way makes it comfortable for biking and just general pedestrianizing too. While the street layout may be a bit confusing at first, it's kind of fun to just get lost here. There's always something new to discover in the village. It has such a comfortable, human-scaled building style all throughout, and honestly, its subway accessibility along the A, B, C, D, E, F, 1, M, and path lines make it a public transportation powerhouse too. Oh, and if you're into Italian food, this might just be the best neighborhood in the city for that as well. Of course, like Chelsea Meatpacking, its location along the water and easy access to the Hudson River Greenway and river parks elevates it on this list. But it really is the overall ambiance of that old brick New York City vibe, coupled with the selection of small businesses that call the village home, that make this place, overall, the best neighborhood in New York City. So that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more top 10 neighborhood videos in the future. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about the ranking down in the comment section below, and I'll see you all next week from 4th place.